Well, hello, at long last. I think it's been about a month since I saw you last, and I thought I'd just pop on and say hello. So, my name's Penny, if you haven't seen me before, and this is just a chin wag. Sometimes I do a fascinating fact, sometimes I do a bit of counselling. It's an eclectic mix of all sorts of things. Anybody who watches regularly will tell you you never quite know what's going to be coming up. But today it's just me having a chat. So that's it. I thought I'll come on and say hello. Pete's taken the car. Pete's my husband, by the way. And we live here on the southeast of England, right on the tip by the seaside. In fact, I just walk down my road, walk down a few steps, and then I walk along into town. And that's what we try and do every day at the moment. We'll see. Sometimes it doesn't work because if Pete's out doing the gardening, he says, "I've done enough today, Pen." We'll see. But that is our resolve. And of course, sometimes we're too busy, aren't we? Well, I'm saying that as if you know. You don't know, but we are. So anyway, see, I've lost my train of thought. So what? So what have I been up to? Why have I been missing? Well, I told you I had some friends to stay, didn't I? And they came for 4 days and we had a gorgeous time. Heather and Francis. Heather's the one that writes the poems, not my friend who I've just been on holiday with, who makes the quilts. They tease me about that. They say, "Do you know you say that every time you say Heather, Heather?" So, of course, I'm going to have to carry on. Anyway, Heather, who writes the poems, if you've watched my previous episodes, you know she writes some very funny poems. And when she was here, she did have one that was coming to her. So I'm going to have to check. Where is it? Can we have it? Anyway, Heather and Francis came to stay for 4 days and we had a fun time. We just did a bit of crafting, chatted, you know, the usual things you do when you're with friends. And she wanted to go to my local, in Ramsgate, we've got a haberdashery shop that, everything's so reasonable. It really is. And I said to her, if ever you want some buttons, you can get buttons there. Right, let's go. She's one of those. Right, let's go. So off we went. And Heather is renowned for taking quite a long time to choose what she wants. She is particular about what she wants. But if you present her with a wall of buttons, she takes her time, she goes to the checkout, and then she looked at me and said, "Do you think there are any better ones?" I said, "No, I think we had a jolly good look." So that was quite fun. Anyway, they got off and that was that. And we went to my favourite restaurant, you know, in Faversham, Reed's, and we had a lovely time. And then we packed up. Well, I threatened Pete. I always have to threaten him because Pete's a last minute man and he would do it last minute. But I say, "No, lovey, I can't have that now," because his last minute will be, "Oh, do you think that needs a wash? Oh, what do you think?" And no. So we were packed a couple of days before and we went off to our favourite place in the world. Well, we do love Italy, that's true. But really, we love the Isles of Scilly. And if you don't know where they are, if you travel right down to the southwestest point of England, well, Land's End, right down there on the tip, the Isles of Scilly are 26 miles off the coast. And we've been going there regularly for the last, 20 odd years. And we haven't been away for 4 years because my dad died and we looked after mum and then COVID and all of those things. So it was our first holiday in 4 years. And, well, I felt quite a bit nervous. I think if I could have cancelled it, I would have done. But fortunately, everything was booked and I couldn't. And so, that's where we've been. And we had a lovely time. The weather in the southeast of England, which is the absolute parallel to the southwest, obviously. We live right on the coast. Near Dover, if you know Dover, Well, we're about, 50-minute drive, 45-minute drive from Dover, round there on that bit of England that goes out there. There. And the train takes 1 hour, 20 minutes. We've got a fast train to London, which is lovely. It means I can get up and see my daughter very quickly. I'm going this week to see baby George. Baby George is my great-grandson, and you know what? I think he's 6th of Feb. March, April, May, June. Well, on the 6th of July, which, is only, well, I suppose he's 5.5 months, and he's a chuckler. And shall I put a little film up here of him? Okay, there's a little film here of George and Mila, who's 3.5. And I put that in now.
Ready? Steady. Go!
Oh, are you cheeky? You are? Are you gorgeous boy? You are a gorgeous boy. Oh.
So there we are. That's the update with Mila and George. What was I talking about? Can you remember? Oh yes, going on holiday to the Isles of Scilly. I took a little bit of film. So over the weeks, my end film, instead of being my garden, and we haven't been anywhere, sorry, it will be each day on my holiday. And our holiday was extended because there was a train strike. So we'd booked to go and on the one day, and then there was a train strike. So we rearranged and stayed in Cornwall. And then we rearranged because the train strike was extended. And in the end, we had 4 days down in Cornwall. And that's what my film is at the end. I'll tell you about that at the end of my chat here. We had a lovely time. We really did. And looking back at my little film, I got quite emotional. And that's because my dad's family lived in Cornwall. So I think those of you that watched have seen me as a child, on the beaches in Cornwall with my nan and granddad. And, well, my mum was pregnant. I was down there, as it were. And I'm sure I took in the sights and the sounds. And I can honestly say that every single year, for 20 odd years, I went to Cornwall for my holiday. 2 weeks, apart from 1 year. 1 year, my dad said we're going to the south of France. And that was pure dead brilliant, so amazing. I mean, south of France for us. Well, I didn't know what to expect. I got in the car. We travelled overnight. I got in the car and I fell asleep. And when I woke up, I was in the south of France. My dad drove. And, I fell in love with it. I fell in love with everything about it. I couldn't believe it. It was like another world. I think that was in 1964 we went. 63, 64. I got the most beautiful cotton bikini with a embroidery anglais frill round. And we stayed in this villa. We stayed with my dad's friends. And the villa had opened out onto its own private beach. I mean, that was amazing, considering we'd only ever been to Mevagissey and the surrounding little places in Cornwall. Well, I fell hook, line and sinker. I just loved it. And I sat on this rock. My mum said, all we ever saw you out the kitchen window was you sitting on a rock on the beach. And I felt like a mermaid. And when I think back, it all intertwines because growing up and going to Cornwall, there's a lot of chat about mermaids. We used to go, my dad had a fisherman friend, and we always went on his boat catching fish. Catching fish I hated, but being out on the sea, on that Cornish sea, it's the colour of it. It's not like round here. Oh, it's good. I'm going to have to knit a scarf that reflects, well, I think I've got one really, but I'm going to have to really think about it. The colour of the sea in Cornwall, it's the depth of it, and well, we were talking to a fisherman. That's right, we were talking to a crabber. I went with my friend Heather, who makes the quilts, you know, and we were just going out for a little jaunt, and we met this crabbing fisherman. We just chatted to him, and he said, you know, from here to the island, which isn't very far off. I mean, you feel like you could just walk there. He said it drops. It's 100 meters. It is incredibly deep, and that's why you've got the colours of the sea. And that's my childhood, being out on the boats, swimming in that sea. I would swim in the roughest of weather. Well, I didn't care if it was pouring with rain. I'd be in the sea, jumping the waves. I nearly drowned one year because I went out on a lilo and I got off and I was way out of my depth. Fortunately, my dad saw me and ran out and rescued me. I remember just going under and kept going under and thinking, oh, well, this is it. I was a strange child. I didn't shout. I thought I better not shout. I won't make a fuss. Oh dear. Anyway, all of my trip that conjured up all of those memories. And yes, we spent 4 days in Cornwall because of the rail strike. We had to go early. Otherwise, we would have missed our helicopter. Because to go to the Isles of Scilly, we get on the helicopter. And I took a little pic. Oh, it was lovely. The weather was gorgeous. I was saying, the weather here in the southeast of England, I mean, honestly, the day before we left, we had our heating on. And while we were away, my daughter was messaging me saying, it's freezing cold. I've got my coat. Anyway, fortunately, the weather changed about halfway through our holiday. And on the Isles of Scilly, it was lovely and warm, but we had quite a strong wind, and a strong swell, which meant we couldn't go out on we usually take a boat out to see the puffins and, you know, go to the Northern Rocks, but they said that the swell was just too much. So we didn't get out there this time, but the weather was perfect because there's no transport on the Isles of Scilly. St Mary's has a few cars for people that live there, but other than that, there's no transport. So to get from anywhere, A to B, you walk. And that suited us. In fact, Peach said at the end of the time, boy, do I feel better. I feel fitter. Because although we walk here, it's not the same as, you know, well, just going out in the morning and popping back maybe for a cup of tea and then going out again. And we came back at, you know, well, dusk really. We just walked and it did us good. It did us good mentally and physically, which is why we like the Isles of Scilly. And it's so pretty. Anyway, what? So, yeah, we had our 4 days and we stayed in Mousehole. It's written Mousehole, but you don't say it like that. You say it Mousehole. And we heard quite a few Cornish accents down there, which was lovely. And there was a gorgeous shop. It was so unusual. It was built like that. I didn't take a picture of it. I'll see if I can get one, if there's one online. But what shop was it? The Ark. St Clement's Terrace, Mousehole. Handcrafted jewellery. Wow. What a shop. He made everything. Oh, you can't describe it. It was called The Ark. And it was just a little triangular shop. And this man in there making things out of silver. And handcrafted jewellery by Paul Spencer. Oh, I can really recommend it. I bought a couple of bits and they honestly weren't expensive, but they are gorgeous. Here's my little Mousehole mouse. There he is, look, his big ears. Can you see the size of him? Well, it's hard for me to show you, isn't it? But here he is. It's a bit tricky, isn't it? Oh, but he's gorgeous. And do you know what? He's playing the fiddle. He's playing the fiddle. Well, he had mice doing all different things. This one's just playing the fiddle. But I then bought myself tiny fairy shoes in a little matchbox. I don't believe in fairies, but these are fairy shoes. And honestly, look, I'm getting them out of the matchbox. Can you see? I couldn't resist. How can I show you? A pair. Oh, there's something else in there. I didn't. Oh. Look at this little mouse I bought. I forgot I bought him. Can you see him? Isn't he the most darling? Well, he's as big. Well, he's smaller than my nail. What can I put him on? Put him on the end of my finger. There he is. A little mouse. This is, oh, you have to go and see. Oh, a little pair of shoes, look. And the heel, look, the sole and heel. Isn't that beautiful? What workmanship. He'd made a whole village with all the different crafts and people in the village. I'm not sure if I took a photo. I'll have to look through my photos. Anyway, there's a little pair of shoes. I think you get the gist. Look, little sole. Isn't that adorable? So they're going on my shelf. I do actually collect shoes. I do have some quite nice shoes. I'll have to show you one day. And I did buy Pete. Oh, I think I've left them upstairs. I'll have to show you next time. I did buy Pete. Shall I just nip and get them? Okay, I'll nip and get them. Well, I can't find them anywhere. I mean, I had them 10 minutes ago when I got the little mice. They don't appear to be in the house at the minute, but, well, I shall probably fall over them and I'll show you next time. But what they were farthings, 1945, date of Pete's birth, and he'd made them into cufflinks for me. And he has all the dates, and it's always a joke because when Pete left school and he went to college, and, you know, he went to catering college, and they said, the first thing they said to him was, right, very shortly farthings are going to be out of circulation, so we don't need to add them in to our, you know, maths. And, wow, what a joy. So he always says that farthings were done away when he went to college. So I thought it was rather apt to have a pair of farthing cufflinks for him. They weren't expensive. He's such a reasonable man. I think the little mice, this little mouse, he was £6, and you could see the man making them. So not expensive. What else I bought in Penzance? I was really pleased with this because, I finished knitting. I'll show you. Here we go. I finished knitting the socks. I started them quite a while ago. I've got a frog in my throat. Hold fire. I started knitting them quite a while ago, and they're all Pete's socks, different socks. I thought, well, why not use up those little bits of wool that are left over? They're the same. I measured them out. And well, then I thought, what a stupid thing to do, because Pete's very heavy on his socks, and I darn them, and I re-darn them, and I darn them. Well, of course, I've used the little bits of wool, haven't I? So I haven't got the darning wool. So we were in a little, Pete bought a new pair of shoes in Penzance, and there was a little craft shop on the corner. They didn't have much, but what they did have was all the different colours of, can you see, that's a brown, and I got a green nanny, and blue, that's a grey, another colour, type of green, got the sun reflecting, and a red wine colour, and it's scan fill. merino wool, no, Scanfil mending wool. 55% wool, 45% nylon, 15 metres. They weren't expensive. I can't remember the price, but they were so reasonable. And I thought, oh, I'll have those. She had a whole thing of all the different colours. And yeah, so I've got some darning wool. If these socks that need darning. So I finished off the socks. And I'm going to knit him another pair, and I'm going to knit, this is lovely for the winter, but I'm going to knit, but he wears them all the time, summer, winter, autumn, spring, and I'm going to knit them a little bit shorter, just so he can turn the top over, and he's got them, you know, not right up his leg with his shoes. Anyway, as if you wanted to know all that, but I got the wool. Do you remember me just saying about going to the shop in Ramsgate with the buttons? Well, they sell, they've just got a whole floor of fabric, all different fabric. They do have quilting fabric, really lovely, you know, John Loudon and all named quilting fabric. And they sell it all for £7 a metre. You never know what you're going to get. As he said, I bought this for £7 for the metre. I bought a metre, and she said, oh, and he bought it yesterday. It's surprising what's on the lorry that he buys. So he doesn't buy the lorry, he buys the fabric on the lorry. He never knows what it is, but it's always good makes, you know. Anyway, we had a look and I couldn't resist. It's the Strawberry Thief, and I bought a metre of it for £7. So I'm going to make a bag out of that. It's very pretty, and it's beautiful cotton. It's not the you know, Tana Lawn, the Liberty Tana Lawn. I got 2 metres of that as a present when I left work, which is £25 a metre, but this was £7. So yeah, there it is. Is that the right way up? Yeah, there's the little bird, and there's the strawberries. There he is, look. So that's a purchase. Oh. But again, I haven't broken the bank. What I did break the bank with was some, let me just put that on there, was my favourite wool. I just don't think you can beat it. I've knitted quite a few things in it, but it's Irish artisan yarn, and it's a 4-ply, not a fingering, 4-ply, baby alpaca, 70% baby alpaca, and 30% silk. And it's the most softest, divine. I knitted Anne a scarf in it, a shawl, you know, what do you call it? And knitted myself, knitted several things in it. But the colours are to die for. Can you see that? That's called Narin, that one. I think they're all towns in Ireland. Oh, it's gorgeous. I get it from Yarn Works, WORX. And it usually comes back in a day or two. Irish artisan yarn. And this one is Wicklow. That's £25 a ball. Well, it's not a ball, it's a skein. It's 100 grams, which is expensive in anybody's world. But as you can see, well, it's beautiful. And I'm going to treat myself to a couple more colours. I want some dark blues. So yeah, I also bought, oh, can I find it? Well, I bought another couple of pinks, but I'll show you that next time because I'm knitting something with it. I'll show you when I finished it. So what have I finished? Oh, while I was away, I knitted the Celine cardigan. I'll put it up. The Celine cardigan. And the reason I liked it was because, well, it's got short rows shaping and it's shaped. So it's a little swingy cardigan, you know. Yeah, it's shaped all round the back as well. So it's sort of, I'll show you, I finished it. I'm going to take it to my daughter this week. I chose some colours. Well, I was really pleased because I saw Mila in a dress, a little film of Mila in a dress, and it was all these colours, dark and the pinks and the yellow. Can you see how it's shaped? So it's got short rows, you can see, look, just a little bit, the shaping along there, which gives it that little, yeah, flared look. And I'm hoping it's going to be a short little flared cardigan on it. No point me putting it up, it doesn't fit me, but it's a pretty yoke. Let me show you the back. Yeah. And I chose the little pink, I chose the colours. I had some of them. I had the blue, I had this blue. I think I bought this lilac, and I bought it's a little, I didn't want white, they did white. It's a little greyish. I thought I'd use that as the background. Anyway, it's beautiful. I put on screen what the wool is because I've forgotten. But do you know what? It really feels substantial. And that's because it's knitted on quite a small needle. I wanted, that's what I liked. Let me see, and I haven't got it here. But it's not, it's knitted on I think it was a 3 something. I'll put it up on screen. But that's given it a very, not firm, but denser knit, and I like it. Oh, and it's got a little picot edge. Can you see? Here, all round. Little swingy picot edge. So I'm really pleased with that. So there we are. That's my news. That's what I've been up to. We got back to, well, the garden needing a little bit of TLC, obviously. But everything's late here. The roses are all out. And I'm looking out now. And the daisies that are all in the wild bit that Pete keeps, we're going to have to cut that grass down because it's really long now. Another couple of weeks and that'll be cut down, but all the insects love it in there. And they're still out. And they always remind me of my grandson who was born on May the 9th, because when we took his photos as a little babby, they were out, and my daughter used to dress him in white, and with the white daisies, they were really lovely. But here we are, practically at the end of June, but because of all the cold weather we had, and then it all of a sudden went up to 30, and everybody's going, oh no, we can't bear it. But then where we were over the west of England, the southwest, we were about 17, 18, which for me, walking is perfection. Just sitting, it was just lovely. No rain, we didn't have, I don't think we had a drop of rain. So that was nice. Didn't have to take all out. We took them, obviously, but we didn't have to take them out with us. And we saw some nice things. Anyway, I'll tell you about that as the weeks go by and my little films come up. So I wanted to show you this book. I have shown you a long time ago when I got it. But doing Chinwag with Mum got me chatting, you know, to her about my history and all of this. I said, Mum, why did you call me Penelope Ann? Oh, she said, Dad named you that. And I said, did he? She said, oh, yes, he chose the name because he'd read a book and he was so taken with the book. And of course, I then went online. I went online this week, actually, to see if I could see it. And no, there's no copies, all sold, all sold. So I was really lucky to get this one. But it's by J. Henry Harris. And it's a story about Penelope Ann. And it says it's a Cornish romance. And it was printed in 1909. That's when he wrote it. and it is rather to all lovers of Cornwall and the Cornish race, and to the great Cornish family beyond the seas, I dedicate this book. That's what he says. And it's all about Penelope Ann. Hold fire. Here she is. That's the ticket. Penelope Ann, Chapter 1. Writ in Sand. The clocks of Porthilly seemed to tick in a minor key on a September afternoon when the last of the pilchard fishing fleet leaves the harbour. The men, the cause of so much strife and discord, who make so much work, are all away, though not so far, but their boats can be seen by the women who choose to lean their heads out of the window or stand on the cliffs and look seaward. Yes, there's the fleet, with so many of the jarring elements of social and domestic life on board. But as they sail away, becoming mere specks on the horizon, lit up with the glowing tints of the western sky, a feeling of loneliness, which is called wishedness, creeps over the women. After all was said and done, they were men, and they're men, and must be put up with. But a great outward peace falls upon the place when the men are away fishing. The women feel themselves free to reassert their love of order and cleanliness, which seems impossible when the men are about, leaving their tarry finger marks upon the paint and the black tracks of their heavy boots upon the floor. And they are in evidence everywhere. A blue guernsey here, a flannel there, and great woollen socks thrown down upon the mats, all wanting to be vamped or darned or washed. Day by day is the same, varied only by one day being worse than another. Every day the same, and the women give sighs of relief and show flushes of impatient anger, followed, however, by feelings of resignation and a certain cheerfulness born of a belief that one day there will be perpetual Sabbath for all fishermen's wives. But when night falls and the women see the boat's lights twinkling in the darkness, there rise heart longings for the absent, and all the sense of hardship fades away. After all, they are men, and they're men, and can no more help their beastly ways than fish can help swimming in the sea. And then comes over them the irrational desire to mend and knit, to bake and wash and scour for evermore, for the men whose tarry hands and great sea boots cause perpetual annoyance and form the theme of perpetual conflict. One fine September afternoon, the women met in small knots and talked, each after her own manner, with vexation, with mocking raillery, with good-natured laughter, just as the spirit moved, and according to the temper in which her husband left her to go a-fishing. William Pardew has lost his great sea boots. There'll be pretty rigs when he do come ashore. That maid, Penelope Ann, has been playing her tricks upon the men again. Who knows? Find the maid, and the boots'll bite ye. The maid is mazed, said one. Wicked, I do call it. A young girl stands on the beach, watching the fleet sail away. She knows all the boats well enough, knows them by the patches in their sails, by the cut of their mizens, by their spars, by their trim, by their sailing. Then she knows which will be the first and which the last to leave the harbour. For there is a first and a last among deep-sea fishermen, as in every other occupation in the world. And as she stands upon the beach, crushing the crisp, dry shells beneath her small feet, her back to the sun dipping behind the western hills, she surveys the whole line of boats stretching from the headland to the little cove, the tail boats rowing hard to catch the land breeze blowing from the cliffs. There's one boat, with newly barked mizzen glowing like gold amongst the dark tan sails of the fleet, which she singles out for special inspection, wondering the while whether William Pardew is there, or whether he has remained ashore searching for the heavy sea boots which she knows lie safe enough at the bottom of the great water butt in the little garden behind his father's house. Well, she knows an hour of reckoning must come one day for all the tricks she plays upon the men, but every nerve tingles now with sheer delight at the thought of her manifold sins and wickedness and the risks she runs, and then at the subtle cunning which, till now, has enabled her to escape with small punishment. She thinks of the great boots lying peacefully at the bottom of the water cask, and jumps for very gladness as she pictures William Pardew searching in cellar and in loft, turning over old sails and nets and heavy ballast stones, in vain. When he kissed Mary Mina upon the doorstep, "Why didn't he give me one too?" she says aloud, as though in self-justification of an act of more than usual audacity, even for her. Alone upon the beach, the sea mirroring the sky, now shot with gold and purple, and no witnesses but the black, grim cliffs crowned with fading bracken, the girl gives vent to her excess of joy. "I am your obedient servant, Mr. William Pardew," says she mockingly, and making as good a curtsy as her very short skirts will permit. She runs along the beach light as a fairy, humming some fantastic air, and then stops to dance to the short, quick ripples falling rhythmically on the fine shingle. It was a wilful fantasia, the dance and song, as of some bright, joyful spirit of the sea, materialized for the occasion, but not unknown to the watchful seagulls, preening their wings, for seabirds, they say, see strange forms in morning and evening mists, and witness many a mad, weird, cosmogonial dance by the spirits of destruction in the wake of storms. Merry laughter ripples over the sea and is carried by the freshening wind towards the fishing fleet, which young eyes alone can distinctly see drifting without sails to their floating nets. But no one heard, perhaps, the save bright-eyed gulls and the long procession of black porpoises following their leader like battleships, their admiral's flag. The sight is familiar enough to the young girl when the dainty pilchards are swimming near the rocks. Lightly she throws herself upon the sand and listens to the strange rumblings from she knows not where, but which she knows to be the prelude to the autumn gales. They say it's Booker, a survival of a picturesque paganism on the coast, blowing up the wind, which is stored in caves until the tempest. This rumbling heard on the beach is but the prelude to the grand full orchestra which all will hear by and by when the winds of destruction are let loose. This young girl, true daughter of the sea, knew what the sounds meant, and why this exultation, as though something in the air made her sing and dance and shout, and play tricks upon she cared not whom. Her thoughts flew quickly to the fleet, riding to their nets, to the boat with newly tanned sails, and to the familiar face of William Pardew. If peradventure he were there, and not ashore seeking the big sea boots hidden in the water cask. There was no danger of storm tonight. She knew that as well as the white-breasted shags resting on the rocks, and the grey seagulls trying their voices, ooh, 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 softly, until the day when they will fly, full-throated down the wind, heralds of the storm, to all the dwellers on the coast. It was only the Bookers making ready, but the mere thought of danger transformed the girl, who for a moment lost her mischief-loving expression and put on that troubled look which adds to the sadness of black velvet eyes, blackly fringed. But it was only for a moment. The sun-dried stem of a sea plant, thrown high upon the beach, lay close to her hand. She took it up and stooping, wrote in big capitals above high water mark upon the sand, Penelope Ann. "He's certain sure to see that when he crosses in the morning," she said to herself admiringly. A moment later, and the black-eyed gulls saw this young girl, who seemingly possessed so much in common with themselves, spring lightly from rock to rock and then disappear around the point. This was the shortest way into the fishing cove, but not much frequented, because the rocks were ragged and pointed and cut like knives, so sharp that were they, and the wet, glistening brown seaweed was slippery too. But she stepped so lightly and surely that the way had no terror for her, and her movements were as graceful as of being born of air and sunshine from the bosom of the deep. Shags and divers, resting on the margin of the rocks, watched the fairy figure in short skirts and short tousled black hair waving behind her. To them it was but a passing vision, too ethereal to be human, and it was only humans which frightened them after all. Well, that's chapter 1, and that's why he called me Penelope Ann. And you can see he completely brought me up to be part of Cornwall and its beaches and its caves. I can't tell you the number of times we went into this massive cave and all that sea, weed was there, and the fisherman told me that's mermaid's hair, and I believed it. Absolutely believed it. And I've always had a love of mermaids. I wanted to embroider one. Oh, I know. You see, these things are put in your head when you're little, aren't they? Anyway, that was my indulgence reading that to you and telling you about why I'm called Penelope Ann and my link to Cornwall. So I'll have a little drink. And I'll tell you about the film now. I've waffled on enough. So we stayed at Mousehole, and that's, as I said before, with the little mice. Well, if you like mice, I mean, every little gift shop sells, well, the gift shops were beautiful, but full of mice, and the books from Cornwall, they were lovely. Nice to browse around. We had beautiful weather. And yeah, my little film starts off with me coming home, and the roses out, and just a little film of the garden, just so I can remember what it was like in June. And yeah, we got the train from Penzance. We got the train from here to Paddington, and then we went from Paddington right the way to the end of the line, Penzance. And there's a little bus. Honestly, Mousehole is this tiny little village, but it has a regular bus from Penzance every half hour, and the bus takes about 15 minutes, and that's where we stayed at Mousehole. And Mousehole was first mentioned in 1283, so it goes back a long way. And in 1302, pilchards were exported to France, and they used to have 55 boats in the 18th century in the harbour. And Newlyn now is very famous. That's the next little town along, not far. I mean, you can practically walk into Newlyn, but Newlyn is the place now where there's the boats and the fish is landed. But as I say, in the 18th century, it was Mousehole that was much, much bigger than Penzance or Newlyn, and it had 55 boats in the harbour. It was attacked in 1595 by the Spaniards, and there was only one surviving building, and we came across that, and you'll see that in the film. It was the pub, and it was the Cegwyn Arms, and this guy Cegwyn, he absolutely stood and protected his house, and there's a plaque there now, and I took a picture of the house. It's got 2 big stone pillars. It was attacked. Mousehole was attacked in 1595, and nothing was left standing except for this one place, the pub, the house. On the outskirts of the village was the lifeboat, and it was a lifeboat came about in 1913, but in 1981 the whole crew of 8 was lost on the 19th of December in a massive storm, and the lifeboat then was moved to Newlyn, but it was still called the Pene lifeboat. Dylan Thomas and his wife, Caitlin McNamara, they honeymooned at Mousehole. And it's famous for its Christmas lights because they're turned on the day of the lifeboat disaster. But also they do celebrate the ending of a famine in the 16th century. So I think people quite like to go and see these lights. I should think in the ending of December, they're quite something, commemorating the end of a famine and this lifeboat being lost. Because the pilchards, as I said, the pilchards were sent to the French in 12-something, weren't they? I said that. Pilchards were exported to France in 1302, and that inspired the book Stargazy Pie. And that's a pie that's a mixture of fish and egg and potato, with the fish's head is protruding out. And there's a lovely storybook. Oh, if I hadn't had luggage issues, I would have bought one. But I had, I was getting on a helicopter and I didn't want to carry it. But the books they had in the shop were beautifully illustrated. And so that's where it was inspired from, this Stargazy Pie, Mousehole. And the train journey down to Mousehole on my film, when it gets to Devon, it goes right by the sea. And a few years ago, the line was completely washed away. And we thought, oh no, we're not going to be able to get down to Cornwall because there is only one line. And you'll see how close it is to the sea. But fortunately, they worked so hard and they managed to get the line back up and running the week before we were due to go away, which was at the end of April. It was a massive storm on February the 14th of that year. And it washed the line completely away. So it just took them to practically the end of April before they got it up and running again, which meant really that Cornwall was cut off. Yeah, it was quite something. Devon has got red soil, and you always know you're in Devon. Pete's mum and dad lived in Devon, so as soon as we hit that red soil, we almost feel like we're at home, Truro's the capital, and I just take a picture of the cathedral, and it's a modern cathedral. It's not old. I can't remember when it was built, but I think I looked it up and it said it was modern. But I took the photo just from the train. We had a balcony on the hotel, and from the balcony you could see St Michael's Mount, and that was a Benedictine abbey, and the Norman conquest in 1066. It's been full of conflict. There was conflict then, right the way through to the Wars of the Roses in 1473. So there's always been conflict on that St Michael's Mount. The first beacon there was lit, as a row of beacons to let London know, a series of beacons to let London know that the Spanish Armada was coming up. And what else? In 1954, the Lord Leven gave a large part of the island, St Michael's Mount, to the National Trust. Lord and Lady Leven still live on the island. We have walked across. You can walk across at low tide, and we got the boat back, and you can look all over, and the gardens are beautiful. Anyway, from our hotel balcony, you could see it in the distance. I got a nice shot of it. What else on the film? Well, our hotel went down to the sea, and it was the full moon that night, and honestly I've never seen anything like it. Usually it shines bright white. It was pink. It was an absolute pink moon. And well, I said to my husband, I said to Pete, is it the sun? He said, no, it's the moon, but it was pink. And you'll see that in the photos. I never put tints or anything on my photos or anything. They're just as I take them. But it was truly beautiful. And then I was just taking it, and a fishing boat went by, and it was pitch black. And I managed to get it. And you can see the man. And of course, birds don't fly at night, do they? But yeah, the gulls flew behind this fishing boat because they knew that all the fish was going to be tossed aside as it was gutted and all of that, you know. So that's what I end with, a little film of the fish. So next time, it'll be a film of us getting over to Tresco and showing you where we stayed on the island. The Isles of Scilly. There's 5 islands. I'll tell you all about the Isles of Scilly next time, and hopefully it won't be too long before I do another episode. I've got friends coming next week, so I hope to do a little episode before they come, and then I've got a very busy week the week after because I've sold my mum's house, and we've got to really get down to the last knockings of clearing it, which is very emotional and very time consuming. And well, you pick things up and you say, what should we do with this? You know, you don't want to throw it away, you don't want to give it to the Oxfam or whatever charity shop, but I can't bring it home. You know, I've got a small bungalow. Anyway, that's our problem, but it's going to be done next week. Not this week, this is Monday. Next week I've got friends coming for a week, our darling friends coming down, and the week after my brother's coming over, and we're going to work hard, get a skip, and we've got to clear it because we've sold it. So, end of. I'll say goodbye, and I'll see you soon, and enjoy the film. Bye-bye. Enjoy your week too. Well, enjoy this lovely sunshine if you've got it. I know you watch from different countries, but we've got the most beautiful, perfect weather. Here in the southeast, little breeze, not too hot, not too cold. Yeah, and the beaches have started to build up. I showed you that when we came back. I just took a little film. And we walk along one beach, which is not always a Stone Bay. It's never busy. And then you just go round the corner, and that's the beach where Broadstairs is, the little town, and that's the way we walk in and do our shopping or whatever. Anyway, enough waffle. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
straight cruising, headed for a bruising, watching out for number one. You gotta slow down and look around you, son. Today is just today and not tomorrow. Where you're going, you can rest your head. Where you're going, brightness looks big. Where you're going, truth cannot be hid. Gotta get going. Easy now. You gotta get going. Easy now. Be hard working so you can be deserving of the rest that you are given. You gotta slow down and look around you, son. Give a lot and live a little. Work with what you got. Where you're going, you can rest your head. Where you're going, brightness looks big. Where you're going, truth cannot be hid. You gotta get going. Easy now. You gotta get going. Easy now. Get along, give a hand, sleep heavy, be the man. Just there, where you are, do something, be the star. You gotta get